Please, you want to move the motion?
Very good.
Okay. 10 minutes, sir.
10 minutes, okay. Thanks very much, Cathaoirleach, and we'd like to welcome Minister Humphreys to the House. It's a great opportunity for us to discuss the broad-ranging remit that is her responsibility at senior cabinet level. And at the outset, I should note that this originally was a motion that was to be moved by my colleague, Senator Dennis Landy, who has an intense and profound interest in a range of areas that he wanted to address to the Minister today, but unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, he can't be with us here today. But I'd just like to note his apologies and that it was not something outside of his control. And so, Minister, what I'm going to try and do within the time constraints, I'm going to try and dovetail Senator Landy's concerns and issues and contribution along with my own, but they're all on the same gist in any event. And one of the issues that Senator Landy particularly wanted to talk about was the importance of this campus here in terms of its importance culturally, its importance economically, and its importance to the heritage of the country, and then in turn to the economy of the country, the importance of our fabulous institutions such as the National Library and the National Gallery and the National Museums. And it cannot be overemphasised enough the significance with which the Irish cultural disposition and the Irish cultural base punches above its weight and has a footprint worldwide, no more so than when I see our great colleague here, Senator Laura O'Samara and the influence of Cultus Cultúrií around the globe. And it's similarly, you know, the Book of Kells, our National Library, as I said, our National Gallery, and our artists and authors that have fabulously filled those corridors of these fine buildings with such outstanding works, and the importance of that, Minister. And I suppose you're in the hot seat to some extent that you're the custodian of this cultural archive and these cultural institutions, and it falls to you, I suppose, at a difficult time at Cabinet and in Government to fight your corner for Irish culture and Irish heritage, and at a time of diminishing resources and competing demands on limited resources. And it's in this context that we're commending you and respectfully saying, you know, the Government and the Minister have done a good job. Like, for instance, I'm always fascinated that such fantastic premises as the National Library and the National Gallery and the museums are free of charge. Just how fantastic it is to see droves and droves of people, particularly young people and students, you know, swelling into the corridors and queuing up on a daily basis. And I think there would have been, and possibly was, a temptation at some stage, you know, even to put a modest charge on access, and that was resisted. And it's fantastic that anyone and everyone can engage and go along to see the fabulous exhibits, books and paintings and so on. But I suppose also, Minister, there is the other side of it, in that while visitor numbers continue to rise, the funding for institutions such as the National Library have taken a significant hit, and issues such as, you know, the preservation of the ancient manuscripts and books and the archiving have taken been put on the back burner, Minister. And, you know, I would ask you today, you know, that you look at this, because there are concerns that, you know, irreparable damage can be done to valuable manuscripts and books and paintings and so on. And I know there's a big job of restoration now going on in the National Gallery. But it would be remiss of us not to put on the record that there are priceless Irish records and manuscripts in the archive here which are not being preserved and maintained to the standard that is required. So I think that's something, Minister, we'll have to take a look at, because, you know, they do pay their way even in current terms, because the National Library, the National Gallery and the National Museums, you know, they all have, you know, visitor numbers in the hundreds of thousands every year. And they're a huge boon to our economy and a huge part of our tourist attraction. I suppose one of the things that occurs to me, Minister, that seems bizarre as I pass by these buildings on a weekly basis excuse me, is that they're closed on bank holiday Mondays. Now, I could understand maybe during the course of the normal week, that they might not open every Monday. But I would have thought that for families and for tourists and for people who are off on the day off, it would be worth considering, Minister. I think having such fabulous attractions open for families on bank holiday Mondays, and I don't know what could be done about that. The other point that follows on from that, Minister, is that your important department, I think it's important to have strong interaction and interface with other departments to make sure that you're across what they're up to and how you can have a symbiotic relationship to support each other. I'm thinking, for instance, of the Department of Tourism. Like most recently, the Department of Tourism launched a worthy initiative, Ancient Ireland East, and the trail down from the Boyne Valley down through the country. But, Minister, they mustn't have checked in too much with your department when they did it, because they sort of left Laois out of it almost completely. And, there's a whole tranche of attractions and ancient heritage sites, such as the Rock of Dunamaze, such as Abbeleg's Heritage Town, which has the distinction of having manufactured and made the carpets for the Titanic, for instance. And even in more latter-day terms and modern terms, it's been established that it's the ancestral home. Abbeleg's is the ancestral home to George Clooney, the film star. And I just think that those kind of things could have been easily incorporated. I know it's a work in progress, and it's not a definitive product at the moment. But I would ask, Minister, that that the Department of Tourism liaise more with yourself and your department, not to overlook places like Laois when they're drawing up these plans and these programmes, because I think it would be remiss of them to do so. And in any event, as tourists fly into Dublin and flock to Kerry, to my colleagues' constituency and county, to the Cathaoirleach's county, and indeed to the fantastic attraction that is the Wild Atlantic Way, it would be well worth their while to stop for a day and a night and spend some time in Laois and in the Midlands and explore our wonderful heritage and heritage sites and attractions. And in the spirit of that, Minister, again, we had a very timely briefing just today from the Heritage Council, who contacted us to go and talk to them about their work and the enterprises they're conducting. And it's a fantastic organisation, again, carrying out fantastic work in communities. And, Minister, their budget has been slashed from 22 million in 2008 down to 7 million today. And they have kept their administrative cost to as low as 20% of their budget, which I think, by any standards is commendable, considering what some other organisations gobble up in that area. And, I think that, they have, I suppose, a reasonable expectation that we would now, when things are starting to improve, gradually restore their budget to the Heritage Council so as they can embark and roll out the Irish Uplands Partnership, the Rural Towns and Villages Network, the Heritage Officers Network, and other national landscape strategy, for instance, which I think we're remiss in not having developed properly and concluded. I think we're one of the few European countries that hasn't got a sufficiently robust national landscape strategy, to my mind. And if I'm wrong in that, Minister, I'd certainly stand open to correction. And in that regard, that leads me on to my next point. As part of the programmes that the Heritage Council sponsor and support, it's the fantastic National Biodiversity Data Centre. And it's just an amazing open resource for everyone to tap into in terms of the records and the database they have in terms of our wonderful national biodiversity. And again, Minister, I think it's something that we often pay lip service to. And I think, it's not just an aspiration. We really have to make sure that we honour our commitment to protecting our wildlife, our flora and fauna, and our biodiversity. Because even in real terms, even if we wanted to be selfish about it, the National Biodiversity Data Centre estimate that Ireland's biodiversity contributes 2.6 billion annually to our economy. Now, that's quite significant and not small change, Minister. And, you know, if ever we needed an impetus to ensure that we respect, as I say, our flora and fauna and our wildlife, we should make sure that we do not undermine or under-resource these organisations. And therefore, Minister, it would be absolutely remiss, in the spirit of that, it would be remiss of me not to take this opportunity that I've committed to doing to my own local community in Cullen and Ballarone, County Laois, who are in the throes of a protracted battle, and now a legal battle, with none other than the state forestry agency, Cuilta, regarding the development and planned imposition of wind farms on top of people's homes, effectively, in the area where I come from. And in the context of that, Minister, it is our view, and it is the view of the community, and the view of the eminent legal team, that Cuilta if they develop this wind farm, are in breach of the Habitats Directive, and would be in breach. And I think that's a very serious matter, Minister, because it's not an aspiration, as you know. The Habitats Directive is very prescriptive, it's very serious, and it has to be taken seriously. And this development, were it go to ahead, in my view, and I'll finish up at this point, Cathaoirleach, would pose a serious threat to the protected species of the freshwater pearl mussel. And we cannot allow the state, one arm of the state, to put the state at odds with being in breach of the Habitats Directive, Minister. And I would ask you, when you get the opportunity with your officials, to continue your support through National Parks and Wildlife and the Heritage Officer Network to ensure that your department is fully appraised of this implication, adjoins itself and supports the community in its High Court appeal and challenge to this issue, particularly on the issue of the breach of the Habitats Directive and the threat to a world-renowned endangered species, the freshwater pearl mussel. So I want to thank Cathaoirleach for her forbearance in the matter. I know I had to race through a fairly broad spectrum of issues, Minister, and I look forward to your reply and your own contribution. Thank you very much.